Welcome to a special edition of KOTN Late Night. Doug Lesmerises, Bill Landis in Acrisure Stadium in Pittsburgh. Bill, we'll start with this. Should Pitt be the 3 seed or the 4 seed in the playoff?
Why are you selling them short?
Watch out, SEC.
There are 2 other seeds they could be.
Yeah. A 41-13 win for Pitt over Syracuse. 5 interceptions for Pitt of Kyle McCord, including 3 pick sixes. I think maybe coming into the game, you could have wondered if these 2 teams were pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
Pitt had 2 comeback wins. Syracuse had a nice comeback win against UNLV, and a game they could have won against Stanford. And I think we leave here thinking maybe there's quite a gap between these 2 teams, or not. Or did this just was this a BYU blitzed Kansas State kind of situation where this game is not indicative of these 2 teams, or it did tell us who these 2 teams really are?
I think it told us there's a gap between these 2 teams. And I think it starts with the defense and the pressure that Pitt can put on a team and the way that Pitt can swarm an offense, which it has not done all year, which I'm sure we'll talk about. I just don't know if that is a reality for Syracuse's defense. Not a bad defense, a defense that actually, it won't get talked about, played okay tonight.
Yeah.
But I don't know that Syracuse has the athletes and just sort of the aggressive mentality that Pitt showed tonight, and I think Pitt will continue to show the rest of the season.
Just an absolutely wild game. Kyle McCord for Syracuse winds up 35 of 64, 5 picks, 4 sacks, no touchdown passes, 321 passing yards, but he did miss some throws early, but Pitt talked about the idea that both teams had off weeks last week to get ready for this Thursday night game. They changed their defense during the off week, and then they did attack, I think, Syracuse in a typical fashion, which is them being aggressive, bringing a lot of guys, giving unusual looks. You're not sure where they're coming from. But didn't you think Kyle McCord was uncomfortable / sped up, that he missed some spots, but I think Pitt made him miss spots?
I agree. I think it was a combination of the pressure looks that Pitt was giving him. A lot of stuff where they had, 6, 7, 8 guys up on the line of scrimmage, and you don't know who's going to rush and who's going to drop, and then they would drop guys in the coverage. So I felt like that was maybe playing with Kyle McCord's eyes a little bit. And then I think the way that Pitt was mixing coverages was doing it too. Just felt like at times Kyle McCord dropped back expecting to see one thing and then probably got something different, which is not all that surprising given, as you said, these teams are coming off of weeks off each. But it really felt like Pitt used that time to reconfigure its defense a little bit in a way that was really impactful in this game.
The 3 pick sixes in the first half, all by linebackers. And after the first one by Rasheem Biles, when he undercuts an out route and brings it back to the house for 35 yards, Pitt had some stat that was like, that's the first pick 6 by a Pitt linebacker since 2021 or something.
Yeah.
And then Kyle Lewis had one for 59 yards, and we were like, oh, that's the first pick 6 by a Pitt linebacker in 11 minutes. And then Braylon Lovelace had one where they sort of punched the ball out on a screen pass, and that was right before halftime. That was the 3rd one by a linebacker. All different. I think the first one is maybe a misread, misthrow, bad decision by Kyle McCord. The second one is like really a great individual play by Kyle Lewis. And the 3rd one, Braylon Lovelace said they had run 2 screens. They kind of knew the 3rd one was coming and they anticipated it. And then there was just like a lot of stuff in traffic and the ball popped up in the air. But again, some of it you could say, Kyle McCord could have done something better, but a lot of it was Pitt did that to him.
Yeah, it was Pitt guys making plays. And we talked with Kyle Lewis. I'll let him describe his interception, which I thought was the most impressive of the 3. But I thought the first one, the ball was maybe a tad bit late.
Yeah.
And then it was a great play on the ball by Rasheem Biles to catch it and run into the end zone. And then even on the screen pass, it was like a collective effort. There was a defensive tackle there who was like in the area. It might have even hit off an offensive lineman. There was just a lot of bodies there. Probably shouldn't have thrown the ball to begin with. But Pitt, when that ball went up in the air, man, and we saw what three of the interceptions ended up being off balls that were batted up into the air. Those guys swarmed to it. Like, there was not just one Pitt player around the ball. There were multiple guys there who could have ended up with those interceptions. But Kyle McCord made mistakes, no doubt. Like, how could you say anything otherwise? But I really thought the interceptions were much more about what Pitt was doing.
Okay, let's talk then. We talked to Kyle Lewis, who, when we did our midseason KOTN All-North team last week, Kyle Lewis was a first-team linebacker on our team, in part because Pat Narduzzi, the Pitt head coach, said this guy's an all-ACC linebacker, and then we agreed. Kyle Lewis, we talked about his pick and about what this defense set out to do against Syracuse tonight. Joined now on Kings of the North by a true King of the North, Kyle Lewis. You're vibing off how this defense played tonight. What does it feel like when you guys are getting after a team the way you got after Syracuse?
This is our real defense, like watch any of our interviews before. I always said like we had a couple missed opportunities, we had a couple missed assignments. Like this is our real defense. This is what we truly do. We take advantage of like what we see the offense trying to, work towards. Syracuse, they definitely a passing offense. They ran the ball a lot on us last year, but this year the main goal for them is to pass the ball, get the ball in Kyle McCord hand. So we already knew that. We had a whole bye week to prepare for that. We had an extra week on top of that. So, we already knew what he was going to try to do. He even set it off first. He got the pick six. And then, B. George, he caught the pick six. He caught a pick on the ground. Yeah. It was crazy himself. And then I caught a pick six from 19 on 3rd and long, which they love to throw it to. And, it all comes down to film study, what the coach is telling us, what we practice during practice, and everything along those lines. We keep doing that. You keep trusting our system, trusting the process, and it's just going to keep working.
Your pick, we were replaying it in the press box because your back was still turned when McCord let the ball go. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you turn and not just make a play, but make a catch like that. How do you do that?
That's the system. That's film study, Coach is already telling me that too. We practice that during practice. 3rd and long, Kyle McCord, main thing, he definitely a gunslinger. So he definitely going to try to zip it there, definitely on quick hitches. He went past the hitch. So I know it was going to be a quick out or in. I saw him stem in. So after you stem in, I already know you're going to try to go out. So as soon as I saw him plant his foot, I turned around. The ball was already coming. I was there for it.
That is film study, man. That's all that study right there. Did this defense put the rest of the ACC on notice a little bit? You got some big games coming up. And listen, I know you guys, you were saying that maybe you felt disrespected, but I think your coach even wanted more out of this defense for a little bit. Coach Narduzzi was saying that. What does this say to the rest of the league the rest of the year?
The Sharks coming. Pittsburgh Panthers, Sharks, all that. We all here. We definitely here. Everybody calling us frauds. They calling us 6-0 frauds. We're going to be the next up to lose. And we see all that. We taking all of that as disrespect. But we definitely just going to keep taking it one game at a time. We're going to be 0-0 till we play SMU. We're going to be 0-0 till we play Virginia. We're going to be 0-0 till we play Clemson. We're going to be 0-0 till we play Boston College, all them other people. We got straight ACC games. We come for everybody. We're not sparing nobody.
They're Sharks. The linebackers are Sharks. The Pitt Panthers are 7-0. He's Kyle Lewis. He's All North. Thanks for joining us on KOTN. All right, thanks to Kyle Lewis for giving us a little extra time there. You heard Bill. He was going through basically the whole schedule. He got almost all of them. At SMU, Virginia home, Clemson home, at Louisville, at Boston College. I think when Indiana thumped Nebraska last week the way they did, it was a moment for some people to say, okay, I thought Indiana might be pretty good, but now I really think they're good. Mm-hmm. Do you think this is that? Do you think people will think differently, the ACC teams, college football fans, us? Do we view Pitt differently going into these last 5 games the way they played?
I think people will view them differently. Yeah, I think it's a great comparison. And because the thing that I'm sure was in the back of people's minds when wondering how for real is Pitt is exactly what Kyle Lewis said, is how for real is this defense? If Pitt has to try to go through the ACC with Eli Holstein playing hero ball and Des Reed just making guys miss, and that's kind of the only thing they have going, eventually you probably feel like that's going to catch up to them if they can complement that with the type of defense that we saw tonight. And it does feel like this has been building a little bit for Pitt's defense too. Like this was maybe the culmination of a little bit of momentum that it started building a couple weeks ago, and then an off week to really iron out some scheme stuff. So I think Pitt's for real. You and I have kind of always thought Pitt was for real, but I do think this is a game and just really running a 5-1 Syracuse team off the field that will catch the attention of a lot of people, very similar to the way that Indiana did last week.
I do think, we've talked about the undefeated teams a lot. I still do think, though, for our northern undefeated teams, probably you had thought of Oregon and Penn State at the top. Mm-hmm. And then Indiana leading the Indiana, Iowa State, BYU group. And then maybe Pitt a level below that. And by the way, there's only one Southern undefeated team left because undefeated Liberty lost to winless Kennesaw State yesterday. And I think that's not true anymore. I don't know now. I think whatever the respect that people have for Iowa State, BYU, and Indiana, I think I would apply that to Pitt because we had seen the offensive differences with new offensive coordinator Cade Bell, with Eli Holstein being a little bit of a gunslinger but still making plays. The offensive line playing pretty well. Des Reed being an All-American candidate. Pitt did play tonight without its starting left tackle, Branson Taylor, who was injured last week. Last game, he did not come back. Their left guard, Ryan Jacoby, did. I think the questions had been on defense. Randy Bates, their defensive coordinator, likes to be aggressive. There was a lot of, I think, scheme stuff that was smart. There were a lot of individual playmakers, and so we knew the offense was there. Now the defense is there, and now I think you're getting a complete team with a lot of potential, and I do think they don't play Miami in the regular season. Yeah. So they got this home game with Clemson in a couple of weeks. At SMU next week's not going to be easy, but I absolutely think Pitt is an ACC contender, and maybe you made a $2 bet on them at 100-1. Maybe somebody here did that.
Maybe somebody was talking about cashing out. That was me. I said he should have cashed out. No, Pitt is absolutely an ACC contender. Like the next week's game at SMU is gigantic. Like bigger for ACC ramifications than this game tonight was. But this game felt necessary, I think, to like set the stage for that one. Right? Like I don't know if Pitt 45-42.
Yes,
we still would have been excited about the SMU game next week, right? Because it would have been two unbeaten ACC teams vying for position. But like, I think, not to be prisoner of the moment, I think very differently about Pitt after this game because of what I saw from that defense. And I know maybe there's people who think Syracuse has been propped up a little bit and maybe even gotten lucky in a couple of games to get to the point that it was 5-1 coming into today. That is a team that has been really efficient and explosive throwing the ball, and Pitt shut it down and answered, I think, maybe was the biggest lingering question, not just about the defense, but specifically the pass defense. And if it can slow down teams that want to throw the ball the way that Syracuse wants to throw the ball. It will play more balanced teams. It'll have games where maybe it's a little more challenging to do what it did tonight because you also have to worry about the run. But I thought those linebackers and even the DBs I thought were making plays too. Like corners were tipping passes away, safeties were getting involved and stuff. Like it was, the linebackers kind of stole the show, but it was very much a collective effort, and they play a lot of guys. They play hard. They play aggressive. Like I think this defense could be for real.
Do we want to do what's wrong with the Pitt offense? No, I mean, like not really. But you did think that Syracuse's defense actually played kind of well. Eli Holstein, their starting quarterback, who left the game late after a run where it appeared maybe he hit his head on the turf and then took himself out of the game and went to the tent. So we certainly will monitor that. Aronde Gadsden, the excellent tight end for Syracuse, left the game, and Fran Brown, our producer Mike, is monitoring this stuff after the game. It sounds like there's a possibility of at least maybe a concussion there for Aronde Gadsden. But what you said, if it was 45-42, it would have been like, okay, we knew Pitt can put up points, but the defense still isn't good enough. The defense led them in this game. The offense wasn't great. But we don't come away with like questions about the Pitt offense, right?
How many plays did Pitt have? Pitt went into the fourth quarter, I know, having only run 30 plays.
Right.
There was a point, Pitt got the ball back in the third quarter, with 5:22 left after Syracuse went on like an 18-play, almost 10-minute scoring drive.
Yes.
Pitt gets the ball back with 5:22 left, ready to run its 24th play of the game.
Yeah.
So like I don't know what to make of that. I guess the one thing that Syracuse did accomplish was keeping Pitt from being explosive. I also think maybe it was a little difficult for the offense to find any kind of rhythm when it had only run 24 plays for 2.5 quarters.
Okay, our producer Mike doing a great job monitoring everything. Pat Narduzzi on Eli Holstein. Quote, Eli's going to be fine. He's in there smiling, happy, and jumping around. We kept him out of precaution. At first, we just thought he had dirt in his eye. He's happy. Okay. Yeah. That's good. We want everyone to be healthy and happy. 93-44 in total plays tonight. Syracuse 93, that's 13 points. Pitt 44, that's 41 points. Okay, I think we have a handle on Pitt. We're going to be paying a lot of attention to SMU next week, and we might have to be back in Pittsburgh for Pitt Clemson in 3 weeks. I don't know.
If Pitt is unbeaten, we're going to be back in Pittsburgh
Okay.
for Pitt Clemson in 3 weeks.
Let's talk about Syracuse. Did this change our mind about Syracuse, or is this is my number one thing? And let me get philosophical about life here for a second.
Sure.
You can't splice people up. Everybody is their whole thing. And a lot of times the good and the bad are related. So when you say, oh, I wish this person wouldn't do that, it's like, well, that's also why you love them so much.
Mm-hmm.
That's Kyle McCord.
Yeah.
So Kyle McCord was tied for first in the nation in big-time throws coming into this game. He was also tied for fourth in turnover-worthy plays. He always makes turnover-worthy plays, but he almost always has big-time throws to outrank them.
Mm-hmm.
And tonight was the turnover-worthy plays without really the big-time throws, and you get this result. But this was the worst version of it, but it wasn't out of nowhere.
It wasn't out of nowhere, and I think the turnovers that Kyle McCord threw were a byproduct of things that have been, I think, obvious with Syracuse's offense kind of all year. It cannot run the ball. It's had offensive line issues even protecting Kyle McCord. And when you get into a game against a defense that can really take advantage of that, and Kyle McCord has to throw the ball as much as he threw it, the ball is going to end up in harm's way. Now, that doesn't excuse away 5 interceptions and 3 pick sixes, but I'm not surprised that this ended up being a high turnover game because Kyle McCord's played a lot of games that could have become high turnover games. And I guess there's a little bit of luck involved there, but I still think he's the right quarterback for this team. I know Fran Brown does. They have good skill. Trevor Pena played tonight, but I would imagine was not 100%. So you get him back like his normal self. Hopefully you get Aronde Gadsden back. I think they probably feel encouraged by what they saw from their defense, and they got Marlo Wax back tonight, who injured his leg in the first game of the season against Ohio and then had not played before today, and he is their heart and soul of their defense. So I think you can project that forward and feel good about where you are. So it's a really tough loss. I don't know that it has to derail Syracuse's season.
No. Fran Brown, I told McCord to keep pushing. It's part of football. He is our leader. After one of the picks, Fran Brown went right to Kyle McCord and put both his hands on the two sides of Kyle McCord's helmet and talked right into his eyes. And he wasn't yelling at him. He was telling him, like, you're my guy, keep doing your thing, I'm assuming. Yep. And that's one of the Kyle McCord threw all these picks, but he didn't stop trying to be Kyle McCord. Yeah. He did not get tentative. He did not stop trying to rip throws over the middle of the field into traffic. So that's Kyle McCord. And so this is one of those, is that what you would want in your quarterback if you're trying to win a national championship when you have a lot of other talent? Maybe not. And maybe that's why he's not at Ohio State anymore. Is it what you want when you're trying to elevate a place, when you're putting a lot on a quarterback with the issues that you just mentioned? Kyle McCord's an elevator, man.
He is for this team.
For this team. So this is, I think you move on, but I don't think you want him to do anything to stop being who he'd been. He just missed a couple throws tonight while the defense was getting after him.
And I'm assuming that's why they kept him in there. You and I were a little surprised. I mean, like, as you said, it's been a 30-point game for a while. He's still out there. They're kind of just letting him throw the ball around still. And I guess there's a balance there between, like, you don't want it to feel punitive if you pull him out of the game in a way that would make him stop being who he is, because you need him to be the guy that he had been in the 6 games prior to this one that got you to 5-1.
7 games for Kyle McCord this year, 7 300-yard passing games, including tonight. Yeah. So he got the 3 bills, going to do what he's going to do. Fran Brown, Pitt DBs were making plays. They played well and challenged our guys. We have to do a better job of making plays. I just truly apologize to anyone who has an association with Syracuse University, the staff, faculty, alumni, and students. Like, not your night.
Apologies to Mike Tirico.
Apologies to Pete Thamel. This is Kyle McCord. You have to give Pitt credit for what they did. They schemed us up pretty well. There were times when they brought pressure and covered us up pretty well. It's a double-edged sword. You want to establish the run game, but when you're playing catch-up on those drives take 6 or 7 minutes, we just put ourselves in a hole, right?
Can we say what Kyle Lewis told us after we were done doing our interview about the
defense? Explain it. Yeah, because he said sort of the same thing at the podium.
He said he's been here 3 years, right? In the 3 years he's been here, they were calling things they had never called before.
Yes.
He thought that they greatly changed their defensive plan. And I thought you could see it in some of the coverages they ran, just watching from the press box. And you could clearly see it in Kyle McCord, like the stuff that he was seeing on the field were not things that he saw on film. It's a credit to the Pitt defense that they could execute it. But when Kyle McCord says they schemed them up pretty good, he's not lying. Pitt schemed them up pretty good, and really confuse Syracuse's offense.
And this is one of those things. A lot of people have talked a lot about Cade Bell, the first-year offensive coordinator. This is 10-year Pat Narduzzi. This is Randy Bates, the defensive coordinator, who's been here since 2018. The old dogs had some new tricks tonight, along with the new dogs. So, and the Nordog. We got there together. Excellent Pitt performance. And if anybody is having a conversation about who's going to win the ACC, if you're not talking about Pitt, you're doing it wrong. I'm not saying they're the favorite, but don't give us a diet of Miami and Clemson and then not talk about the team that just did that. Because what always gets my attention, I think yours too, is when a team becomes a whole team. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of one-arm teams in this sport right now. They're all defense or they're all offense. Maybe early in the first half of the year, maybe you thought Pitt was all offense. And this game showed you, I don't think that's the case, so watch out.
Said it better than I could.
The kicker said the ACC needs to watch out.
Yeah, the kicker. But the kicker's getting chesty. Everyone's feeling good.
That's a direct quote. Ben Sauls, who kicked a 57-yarder and just, I think he just wants to kick 50-yard bombs and punch people in the throat. And I'm all out of footballs. Because I've covered 2 Pitt games where he's kicked bombs and he comes into the news conference almost ready for a fight in the best possible way. The ACC needs to watch out. All right.
I believe him.
So we said we would do this post-game show if the game deserved it. We thought that meant if it was close. It was not close, but I think this domination deserved it because Pitt said something to the rest of the college football world, and here on Kings of the North, we want to make sure the word gets out.
It was not at all what I thought this game was going to be. You could have let me write 10 scripts for this game. I don't think I would have landed on this one, but it ended up, I think, pretty instructive nonetheless. I think, to go back to the way to open the show with, Pitt showed a lot of people something tonight.
Yeah. Thanks to Kyle Lewis for joining us. Thanks to EJ Borghetti and all the people at this Pitt Sports Information Department who are just fantastic hosts and have been great to Kings of the North. We really appreciate it. Thanks to Mike Yarostowski, our producer, for running all this as we do it. And thanks to you guys for being here. One last time from Acrisure Stadium in Pittsburgh, Pitt 41, Syracuse 13. He's Bill Landis. I'm Doug Lesmerises. And that was a special KOTN late night on Kings of the North.